There's the mower from last week. Today I'm finally getting to this one. This is a older Tecumseh powered Craftsman. Overall it's in decent shape. Even the blade and the underside of the deck is in alright shape. There's a little bit of surface rust, but really nothing major. This thing does have good compression, and I have worked on one of these before. If you care to see that, links in the description. However, just like that other one I worked on, it needed a carb kit, so I picked one of those up for this. And I'm sure this thing's carburetor needs to be rebuilt because it's not wanting to start. That or the primer line to the primer to the from the gas tank to the carburetor is rotted out, which I've got some spare line on hand to deal with that. However, everything else on it seems to be complete. It's even got this air filter on it, which these are pretty hard to find. I can't even find these locally. But other than that, this thing is complete. It does have some fuel in it. It smells okay. It's not horrible, but probably due to be changed out. As far as the oil's concerned, it needs to be changed. It's pretty black. I also think the dipstick tube O-ring is leaking a little bit, so I might pull that out and see if I've got another O-ring on hand, or might just hit it with some silicone and seal it up that way. But the fuel line needs to be replaced as well. I should have some more of that on hand. It's still pretty malleable, but it's just old. You can kind of see it's cracking. It's not all hardened up like I normally see them. But enough of me babbling. Let's go ahead and take this bad boy apart. So we'll start with removing the fuel tank. And in order to do that, I'll pull the dipstick out. We have a few 5/16 bolts. And we can just let this sit here for the time being. Simple enough. Easy. So we'll set the tank aside and get on with it. And of course, in order to get to the carburetor, this whole starter recoil has to come off as well. We have 2 bolts on the cylinder head side of the motor, and we'll take these 2 off. These are both 7/16. Do a preliminary Black Widow check. Everything seems to be okay. We in fact do have a busted fuel line from that primer. That's probably why this thing wasn't wanting to start for us. It's a simple enough fix, but all you got to do is just take the line off from the primer. The primer itself looks okay, but you know, these lines just decay over time. So for the carburetor, we can remove both of these bolts, and that'll allow us to at least flex this around. And I seem to remember now that I did have issues on the other one with this. I can't remember though if I got it off or not, but we do have a couple other lines here to remove. We have the ground wire, which that just kind of pops out like this. Throw that to the side. By the way, all the while I'm making sure there's no Black Widows around here. They do like to hide in small areas like these. Alright, so now I'm going to carefully and gingerly take these linkages off. These things are pretty old, so I'm trying to be really careful with them. And complete with cobwebs, we have the whole carburetor assembly with air filter and intake manifold. So the next thing on the agenda is to remove the rest of this fuel line. We'll put that aside so we can size up a new piece. And these have always been tricky in the past to get off properly. But you just want to be really careful with them because these plastic elbows can haphazardly break. They are very brittle with age, so you just want to be careful with them. They're also not the easiest to change out, unfortunately. So if you can avoid breaking them yourself, that's the best way to go. So we'll pull the air filter off, which it's got this kind of archaic... Wow, didn't even really do anything. We'll clean this off though, for sure. Should be okay. This thing does have a little bracket on it, but we'll remove the rest of the fuel line. So this part is pretty simple. All we're doing is pulling these bolts off to make things a little bit easier. And so there's the carburetor, linkage, ready to be torn apart and rebuilt. So here we have the carburetor. Go ahead and pull the bowl off. It's on there pretty tight. Good thing we have a new gasket for it. And we have old fuel in the bowl as well. Typical. Oh yeah, I've never seen green fuel before, but this stuff is pretty bad. That is just disgusting. Might spray some degreaser on this. Hopefully the bowl's okay. There's the pin. There's the needle. We'll be replacing this gasket. Wow, this whole thing is just, it's in need of a cleaning. Even the part for the butterfly valve is pretty well staled up. So I'll do my best to clean this off, but I'm going to throw the carburetor and the bowl, the bottom bolt as well into the parts cleaner, as these are just disgusting and filthy. And so here's my Hazard Front Special ultrasonic parts cleaner. It's actually been a really good investment for a small engine carburetor. I've been pretty happy with it. But I've got a small amount of Simple Green in there. I've had good luck using Simple Green to clean up carburetors, but now I'm just putting some water in. I can dilute it just a hair. And I'll probably run this thing through a few cycles so I can turn over the carburetor, because it's kind of poking out of the water just a little bit. So this thing makes a lot of noise and interference while it's on with the camera's microphone. So I'm just going to kind of let this thing do its thing, and we'll go from there. Four different runs now. Actually, I think that was 5. Kind of lost track because I've been doing other things. But we'll have a look at the carburetor. And as I was kind of, moving it around inside of the cleaner here, I did make note of that it was actually doing a pretty decent job cleaning it up. So, grab the carb. That was definitely a lot dirtier. I think we're going to have to disassemble the butterfly valve a little bit. That's not too difficult, but it's definitely a lot more responsive than it was. This was all covered in, that syrupy type of gas. Let's see, the bowl The bowl even cleaned up pretty well. It's not perfect by any means, but I don't know what that stuff is in the bowl. I've never seen anything like that. It's almost like they put, it's just a guess, but two-stroke fuel into their gas, and that made it into the lawnmower somehow, and that's what they were left with. I honestly have no idea. That's, like I said, just a guess. But the bolt definitely cleaned up pretty nice. I'm still going to go through it with some 20 thousandths wire and give it a proper thorough cleaning, but it actually cleaned up really well. Happy with that. So this is a carburetor needle seat tool. It's pretty nice. It's a Tecumseh part number. The camera would focus. 670377. You can find this on Amazon for about 15 bucks. This is actually my first time using it, but we do need to pull the seat out, and as you guys heard, it went in and came out. So before I rebuild this thing, what I like about these old carburetors is they're very simple to rebuild. But before I put all the new parts in it, we'll go ahead and clean it up a little bit. And the carburetor's now been cleaned up. Some more anyways. So now we are ready to start installing the new parts and throwing her back together. This is the part number for this float kit, and it came with a new bowl gasket, a new needle, a new seat, a new bolt gasket, and a new needle spring. So all we need right now is the seat. I'll show you guys how to install this. Just go ahead and throw her on like so. So the flat side is at the bottom. Grab your carb and stick her in very carefully. And I don't know if the camera heard that or not, but it went in with a very distinct pop. So unfortunately for the float, this is the best I could get it. I don't know what this stuff is. I mean, it has the consistency of like spray paint. That's what it is. It's like you're trying to remove spray paint from this thing, and it just does not want to come off. But I think I'm going to roll with it, and I don't think it's really going to cause too much of an issue. So just throw this thing back together and call her good. But what I'm doing right now is trying to carefully put the needle back on to the float. And you want to make sure the needle goes down into its home just fine. And now we can reinstall the pin ever so carefully. Pin's reinstalled. Check for proper movement of the needle. Everything's looking good. Oh yeah, that was plugged up for sure. So hit it with some carb cleaner and we'll call her good. So the bolt has been dealt with now. So unfortunately this gasket was not the right size that they had included. So I'm just going to reuse the old one and hope it works. I've had to do that before. But we will put the new bowl gasket on. These are sometimes a little fun to get them to work properly. Right, you just want to keep at her. And I forget which side the indentation there is supposed to go on, but we can figure that out when we put it on the mower. Alright, so the carburetor is now all put back together. Everything's functioning as intended, and I have a new stretch of fuel line, so we will throw that on right quick. Might have to use some Vaseline. So right now I'm just putting everything back together on the carburetor, and it's kind of a slow process, so I think we'll go ahead and cut it right about to here for the fuel line primer. So make sure that is where it should be, and it looks like we should be good to go. Alright, so here it is, all put back together. Put some fresh gas in it and sealed up the dipstick tube. I didn't have another O-ring on hand. I did service it with oil, change that. As far as the air filter goes, I think we're okay. Let's see how well it runs. I did lube up the pull cord mechanism a little bit. I might still have to pull that apart again at some other point in time, but right now it's functioning as it should. Hit the primer a few times. So it's definitely a good little runner. Now I just need to give it a bath, and maybe we'll do some mowing with it. Out a little bit. A decent enough job. I might actually end up keeping this one, getting rid of that newer Craftsman I fixed up a while back. Reason being is because these older mowers typically don't sell all that well, and well, even though this one can't shoot it out the side, kinda is what it is, but I might be able to get more money for that newer one. But of course now I have to give this thing another bath and kind of go from there. But this is all stuff I usually get with the John Deere. The John Deere I do prefer over a push mower for out here. It's just a lot easier, a lot less of a hassle. But for, you know, quick patches of grass you need to trim up, or small trimmings where the rider can't get, these are great for. And that's really the only reason why I keep one around here. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This thing actually runs pretty good for how old it is, and I'm really happy that I got it going. But like I said, I might just end up keeping this one and getting rid of that newer one. But until next time, boys, you all stay classy.